Distant mountains, receding sand, mass conversion and stolen land.
That's Will Stratton from his latest album, Points of Origin, a collection of songs inspired by climate change, bushfires, and Old English ballads. We found Will at home in the Hudson Valley and asked him about what he hopes to accomplish with this new record.
We're born into a world that's already half gone.
You know, I have a full-time job. I work in the legal field, getting work visas for musicians to come into the country.
Oh, I'm sure I have a few friends here in New Zealand that might want to talk to you then.
Yeah, sure. They may already be clients. This firm does a lot of business. But anyway, nice. I'm at this point in my life, I'm not a full-time musician. I have friends who, make a living on the road, and right. I am both envious of them, and that I think they're also sometimes envious of people with a full-time career right now. It's a hard time to be making a living that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm relieved that this record is coming out. I worked on it for about 4 years, and I'm proud of it, and I hope people get something out of it. It's kind of it's at least a lyrical departure from my previous work, which, I'm hoping the lyrics come across in a different way than the songs.
And how is it a departure?
Well, these are all story songs. Well, for the most part they are. And the way the album is intended to work is as kind of a novella where you kind of get acquainted with these characters, and then you kind of see how they fit into a larger world that I'm trying to create over the course of these songs. And I think by the end of the album, my hope is that the listener realizes that final song is referencing other songs on the record, and is realizing that, Temple Bar mentioned some characters in passing who are described in more detail on other songs. And
did you know you were going to do that when you were writing the songs? Was there an overall concept from the beginning, or did it kind of make itself apparent to you as it was going along?
It was largely intentional from close to the beginning. The first couple songs on the record that I wrote, Red Cross Star and Bardo or Heaven, are not really story songs, but after that I wrote I Found You, which is very much a story song, and it was at that point that I realized, thematically this works with the first two, but I should probably try to keep going in this vein and see if I can populate this world a little bit more.
I never intended to take what I want. With my old Triumph Tiger, I rode out the sun singing, oh, I found you, oh, I found you, after the last ride was through. Oh, I found you, oh, I found you, after the last life was through.
You've kind of shifted from writing about your biographical or autobiographical stuff to not doing that. Was that a big thing for you to be able to do in your head, to suddenly tell other people's stories?
It didn't feel like that much of a change, it felt like a change, but not one that required a lot of reorientation. But lyrics, my lyrics in the past have just kind of been like poetry, and this is more like writing short stories. And the love of words is still there, and an interest in the world and how the world works. But when something is clearly fictional, I think it brings in different musical considerations than when something is maybe based on your own life, or is more abstract than that, is not really based on anything specific, but is more based on a feeling.
Uh-huh. So you're saying that musically it sounds different because of the content of the way the songs were written and the topics within?
I think so. Yeah, I took a lot of inspiration from old English ballads on this
Oh,
album. The child ballads, things like Willie of Winsbury, where the way the music is constructed is very flat. It's very linear because the focus is on the lyric and on um, the what's the word? The exposition of a story that is clearly moving in one direction, and the listener is just kind of being taken along in that direction. And I've done that a little bit on previous albums. On my last record, there was a song called Infertile Air that was also kind of a story, and it was all about ratcheting up the tension. It starts out very spare, and then I gradually introduce more instruments, and the drama kind of heightens in a very noticeable and gradual way from the first verse to the final chorus. And that structure just happened to work more consistently across this record, I think, because my mode of storytelling is fairly linear, and that
uh-huh.
that sounded like the way to get the message of these songs across.
All right. So do you look at it as a concept album per se?
I guess so, yeah. It's funny. I can't really think of any concept albums for me that for which that is their most compelling characteristic. Even something like Tommy or Sergeant Pepper, or all of these records are more remarkable because of the music that they contain. And
Right.
maybe I'm just moving out of music and into prose, but my goal with this record was not for the music to be incidental or secondary, but for the lyrics to be compelling in themselves and to pull people in, pull people of a particular persuasion in more than the music, maybe. It's funny, I think that comes across more in live performance because I'm able to tell kind of some interstitial information about
Right,
these
right,
songs and
right.
explain how they connect.
A little preface to everything.
Yeah.
Each one. Yeah. Just, have you ever thought about doing that on the record? Not making a live record, but just going, hey, this is how you get into this.
I'm currently working on something that I think is going to be called Points of Return, which is the acoustic version of this album, where all of the songs, or most of the songs, are re-recorded in a very spare way, and I'm considering doing some kind of spoken word in between the songs to make that record hang together in a much different way than this one.
All right. So with that in mind, what were the sessions like? There, you got quite a few instruments and instrumentalists and guests on it. So what were the recording environment like for you and the folks around you?
The way I record is it's very trial and error. Every record I make, I tell myself I'm going to do it completely differently than the last one. And often the way it shakes out, it is different, but it's not different in the way that I intend. And with this album, I said to myself, okay, I'm going to make this album in a very professional way with somebody who really knows what they're doing and a collection of people who really know what they're doing. And so I worked with Phil Weinrobe on a lot of the recording of the initial sessions, especially the bass and the drums. I ended up retracking some of the bass because I was speeding things up and slowing things down, and so songs needed to be retracked in different keys and so on. I was using Verispeed. But initially the sessions with Phil Weinrobe and the drummer Sean Mullins, who's a friend of mine, great drummer, and Dandy McDowell, who's a wonderful bassist. uh, those were an actual recording session.
Uh-huh.
Everything else about this record was meticulous, slow, grinding overdubs in my home studio, and ultimately in a space that I now share with another musician here in town.
Ah.
But it was, mostly solo stuff, or I would bring in one violinist or my friend Justin Keller, who plays saxophone, and then just track with them and see what we got, and then move on to the next thing. And I like tracking that way. It's extremely, the way I do it, it's extremely slow. It took years, but it allows me a lot of fine editorial control, which I enjoy.
Right.
That being said, I think if I make another record after this, at least in the next few years, I want to try to make a record that is all live, and all of the instrumentalists are in the same room with me, and we just bang it out over the course of a week or two. That would be truly the peak of luxury, I think.
Right. Because both ways are certainly legitimate, but they demand a certain type of personality to be able to, like somebody just sitting there by them, like you were saying, by yourself, and taking long time to meticulously go through and build tracks up.
Yeah.
And then other people can't do that because they just don't have the patience or the inner whatever it is. Whereas other people just want to get in there and just like play live and hope for a good take.
Yeah, and they produce very, very different results too. I think there's an inherent kind of clinical result that you get when making records in the style that I have made them, where you have so much control and there's so much attention being paid to small details that is a big contrast from when you're recording together as an ensemble, and the feeling of the players in the room and how they're communicating with one another, that becomes the focal point. Yeah. So this record started out in that vein, and then I kind of said, I need to have more control. So I'm going to take those sessions where we got the pocket, the groove that we wanted on a particular song, and now I'm going to take myself out of it, and I'm going to retrack myself, and then put all of this other stuff on top and hope that it works.
Yeah. So with you mentioned that I think Bardo or Heaven was one of the songs that you started with, kind of one of the first ones, and it's got some horns in there, and I think it's kind of about a wildfire, but in Hudson Valley, not the Southern California ones. What can you tell me about how that?
Smoke reaching over from a week ago, like a postcard sent by a devil passing through in Modesto. Something that we see but barely understand. All the shipping lanes from Route 99 and up through the heartland. What a misnomer that has always been, just a series of arteries hardening into a bypass.
These songs are all about California wildfires. That wildfire in particular, that was in 2022, I want to say.
Yeah.
It was, there was just tons of smoke coming over from the West Coast and reaching us to the point where we could still smell it and see it. And that was kind of the focal point of that song. And that led me to writing songs that were more informed by my childhood in California. And so, yeah, it's still about California in a way, but not from the perspective of a Californian.
Mm-hmm. So what were you thinking when these wildfires were going on? And I mean, were you sitting there taking notes and thinking about music, or were you thinking about other things?
Well, I was thinking about climate change and about dissociation, feeling like you're outside of yourself, feeling like, well, maybe this kind of strange sensation, the way the light is changing and the way the weather is changing, maybe this is just the permanent feeling of instability that's going to be the rest of my life. Who knows?
Right.
And so I was thinking about a lot of that when I was writing that song.
Yeah. And of course, with the new political administration in place, they're not really that concerned about climate change, are they? Or they have their own version of what it is or isn't.
Yeah, they're they're trying to define it according to their own objectives. It seems like they're not denying its existence anymore, or at least most of them aren't. But they've decided, well, this is another reason to drill more and to gain energy independence from everybody else. Yeah, their line on energy policy and on climate change is it's surreal,
Right.
to put it lightly.
But it's sadly, climate change isn't the most romantic or exotic thing to write about as far as songs go. People maybe want to hear one song and then move on to something about girls and cars and whatever. So
Yeah,
that's a problem, isn't it?
I've resigned myself to the fact that the things I'm interested in writing about are not the most pleasurable, at least not always. But I think you have to write about what interests you, especially if
Sure.
it's something that feels like it's kind of staring you in the face.
Right.
My friend Tamara Lintman in Canada, she's got this group, the Weather Station, and
Oh yeah.
climate
Fantastic.
change has been a real preoccupation of hers for a long time. And the thing is, it's a preoccupation of anyone with eyes and noses and skin. So I think there are just going to inevitably be more albums that are kind of putting that in the forefront of what they're talking about rather than in the background of it.
All right. All right. Now you've written about a place called the Temple Bar, which is the track itself. I can hear some violins and pedal steel and sax and all sorts of things, and it seems to be a character-driven kind of thing. Where did that come from?
I miss all my friends at the Temple Bar, the ones who walked just half a block and the ones who traveled far, a family like a lost and found, blessed by Niles Canyon and the water from the ground.
Well, the Temple Bar was a real bar.
Oh, good.
It's named after a very famous bar in Dublin, Ireland, of course, but there's also Dublin, California, and outside of Dublin, California is Sonoma, California, which is a dusty little town kind of at the crossroads of the Central Valley and the East Bay area. And in the 60s and 70s, there was a bar called the Temple Bar there. My dad frequented it and told me a lot of stories about growing up in that area and having friends in Sonoma. He was from Pleasanton, and that time period growing up in that area is interesting to me because you had ranch hands and the families of ranch hands. You had people working at the Alameda County track, tending to racehorses. You had people moving to that area to work at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, nuclear engineers, people like that.
Uh-huh.
And so you had this incredible kind of confluence of people of different economic and intellectual backgrounds, people kind of from the wrong side of the track, so to speak, and people who would end up, working for the governor or president or senator or whatever. So I thought it would be an interesting location for a song because it really was a place where people of very different walks of life would get to know each other. And that's a convenient setting for a song if your objective is to try to tie a bunch of other kind of disparate narrative threads together.
Yeah. All right. And another place that you've written about is Centinela. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Centinela.
Yeah, Centinela. It's a
I
prison, isn't it?
It is a prison. Yeah, I think it's a municipality that only contains a prison. Basically, yeah. It's in the desert. pretty close to the border with Mexico.
Sentinella, you've made me into a mere martyr for fire. Sentinella, all the points of origin are moving up high. The desert's getting bigger, crowding out the tinder of my mind.
There is an arsonist, a famous arsonist in California criminal history named John Leonard Orr. And at one time, he was at Sentinella State Penitentiary. And the interesting thing to me about John Leonard Orr is that he was the chief arson investigator for the Glendale Fire Department in California for many years. And he actually would investigate his own fires, the ones that he would set. And I thought that was just a great metaphor for a lot of things about America's role in the world.
I can see where you're going there, yes.
Yeah. So I wanted to work a version of him, one that's not really based on reality, into this album. So my version of him is narrating that song, and is also he's the father of the first two characters on the album, the brothers. And in the final song on the record, you hear from his public defender, who is telling this to one of the brothers who doesn't know anything about his dad.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's kind of the approach I was trying to take with Sentinella. It's not really about the place at all. It's about this guy's state of mind, who's been in prison for so long that he's kind of lost his grip on reality out there in the desert.
Yep. And I can see that stories like that would sound great in a live setting. You're going to set it up and go, is that...
I don't know if I'm going to perform that one live. That one I only ever have played on piano, and a lot of these places I'm playing don't have a piano, and I don't feel like lugging a piano around to just play that one song. Maybe I'll figure out a way to arrange it for guitar. The versions of these songs that I play live are very different from what's on the record.
And so once the record is out, what are your plans? Are you touring? Or are you recording more, writing more? I'm working more. You have a job.
I do have a job. Yeah. We'll see for how long. If Musk takes the axe to the American immigration system, we may all lose.
Oh, that's
our
right.
jobs. We'll
is
see.
That part of that whole thing? Is a government job? Is it?
No, it's not. But if they cut enough caseworkers at USCIS, that will put a lot of immigration lawyers and immigration paralegals out of work, because the processing times will skyrocket and people won't bother coming here anymore.
Nice trickle-down effect.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, I'm going to be touring a little bit. I've got a little Northeastern tour coming up at the end of April, and then I've got a couple weeks in the UK in July. And I'm looking to book some stuff out west. I'd like to play these songs somewhere in California. I've got a family reunion to get to in July out there. So, I may be able to put something together in Oakland or Berkeley or something. But yeah, those are my general plans. And like I said, I'm recording a more spare version of this record. And my intention is to release it later this year.
We'll look for that
as kind of a companion piece.
If you enjoyed this episode of the 13th Floor's Music Talk series, please be sure to subscribe to the website or to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram, and wherever you find your podcasts. There's a whole lot more to discover.